Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you all for attending today's happy half hour. Today's topic is the SD-WAN myth. Identical SD-WAN solutions are the same. So let's dive into that. But a couple of housekeeping items first. As with all of our happy half hours, this webinar is being recorded and will be available after the call is over. Any questions that you have during our webinar, please enter them into the chat box on the right-hand side, and we will answer them at the end of the session. Additionally, we have some reference documents available for download. If you also look in the right-hand side, there's 2 PDFs related to our topic today available. The first one is SD-WAN solution brief, and the other is our optimized SD-WAN sheet. So if you want to grab those before you leave, they will not be part of what we send out after the event, but the recording will be made available to everyone in attendance today. Okay, so to begin, I am your MC for today's discussion. My name is Bobby Sauter, and I'm the Director of Brand Marketing here at BullsEye. And today I'll be interviewing Andrew Witt, who is our Product Manager, and James McHale, who's our Sales Engineering Supervisor, both supreme experts in SD-WAN. So Andrew and James, I would like to say thank you, and it's great to have you here. And now that we're done with the introductions, let's dive in, shall we? So let's set the stage for our discussion. Let's start with some of the basics. Everybody thinks they know what SD-WAN is exactly, but just to make sure, let's set the ground rules for what SD-WAN is. So Andrew, what exactly is SD-WAN in its simplest form?
Sure. Yes, thanks for having me again. I don't know about supreme expert, but I definitely do my best. So let's start definition, right? SD-WAN, software-defined wide area network. I think a lot of people on this call may know what that means. They may not know what that means, but in its purest form, what we're saying is we're using software-defined network technology. In this case, we're going to refer to them a lot in this conversation as tunnels that are created from site to site to allow communication throughout your organization that allows encrypted traffic to flow nice and streamlined back and forth. That's SD-WAN at its purest, simplest form.
Makes sense, makes sense. Stands for the S and the D and the WAN, but let's break it down a little bit further. So why do companies need something like SD-WAN? I mean, are there real benefits to the business operations?
Absolutely, absolutely. So really, well, there's a lot of reasons, and I think we'll cover them throughout the call, but is what SD-WAN does for your organization is it creates basically a central control function for the organization to securely route and direct traffic across all of your locations. So a lot of our customers are all multi-tenant. They have customers all over the United States, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands. So it allows communication very efficiently across all of those sites, controllable in one location. But what that does is it increases application performance. It delivers a really high quality user experience for the employees that are accessing things in the cloud and they have shared documents. We have a couple great examples of that later, actually. But really what it ultimately means is higher productivity and agility. And my favorite portion of this is it really does create benefits around IT costs for the organization and saving money.
Got it. Well, I can't think of any businesses out there that wouldn't want to increase productivity and save money. Am I right? Pretty attractive. And it sounds to me like, companies that have multiple locations benefit the most from this. But I'm going to pop this over to you, James. Do you think you could give us like a real world example of utilizing SD-WAN in a business, how they would use it in their day-to-day operations?
Absolutely, I can give several, and I will kind of pull that comment in a little bit, Bobby. It does do great for multi-location, and it's a great MPLS replacement for those private networks, but it also can do a great benefit at a single location. If we're looking to aggregate bandwidth, if we're looking at some pieces around that, it also can do a great benefit there as well. But great world example, I've got 2 of them. I'll give you one that's a multi-location example where I have lots of locations out there, one of our larger franchisees, and they have a centralized actual distribution and point of sale system that is national. And so that means in their DCs, that's where all the data is collected, and they have 2 centralized DCs in the United States, and all of their data is being fed back and throughout the United States. And so instead of going across the raw internet or going through a traditional, maybe a firewall-based, hardware-based VPN, they're utilizing some intelligent technology that's using multiple connections and doing some multipathing. And then it's also what it's looking at is it utilizes the gateway system, which are all salt and pepper throughout the United States. And then there's premium gateways that are going to get the customer there in basically about 50% hop counts and about a 40% savings on milliseconds, all in an encrypted tunnel. So it's safe, it's faster. So as applications are still out in the cloud, they are some larger ones. Actually, I know their accounting department actually was very thrilled because some of this data that was coming back, they were pulling Excel spreadsheets from Office 365, which happens to be another premium gateway with VeloCloud on that premium gateway network. And what was going on is if you get these spreadsheets that are down to the XX, YY, that many columns out, well, when it's hosted in Office 365, we start to see some micro delays. And so when you're trying to work on a very large spreadsheet, that can be very annoying to the end user and actually cause delays and issues. So what it does is it gets you there in half the time and it gets you there securely. So that improves that kind of piece of it. Same kind of thing, I can talk about a single location, my own. I actually live on it. In northern Texas, I distribute 3 point-to-point microwaves and 1 Starlink connection that aggregates my bandwidth because the local bandwidth would not be enough to do what we're doing right now, this video webinar. I would be calling in on a cell phone into this piece without video, and you guys would be showing a picture if I didn't have Velo. So there's another real world example, but back to you on that one.
Well, we're glad that you have that system set up, James. I can tell you that firsthand. Well, you know, it certainly sounds like SD-WAN would be pretty valuable to a business, especially as you mentioned, multiple locations, but you know, a single location can benefit as well. But if you've got multiple branches and you're sharing documents in the cloud, it sounds like SD-WAN might be a real benefit. All right, now that we've got the groundwork all laid out, let's get back to the title of this happy half hour, which is Identical SD-WAN Systems Are Not Created Equal. So I know that's an intriguing statement, and we know that there are some key players in the SD-WAN market, but for this purpose, we'll talk about our technology partner and how that works for us, and that's VMware or VeloCloud, as it's commonly referred to. So we know there are other companies out there that sell the same technology, VMware's SD-WAN. So what makes BullsEye's SD-WAN different? I mean, you know, we're making a pretty bold statement here that it's not the same as someone else might be experiencing. Andrew, I'm going to lob this one to you. Maybe you can start the conversation of how we make this different.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and I think we have a good answer. You know, we work very closely with VMware and VeloCloud on a daily basis, and we've been told multiple times, you know, throughout our work together that the way that we have things set up for our customers is one of very few that have it this way, which makes it very unique in the marketplace. What that is we have what you would call a hybrid gateway configuration for our VeloCloud customers. Meaning we utilize BullsEye's private gateways that run through our data centers. We run through VMware's premium gateways, like Jim talked about a few minutes ago, which contains things like Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, a few other cloud players out there, but hits all of your major ones. And then we also pair that with the local bandwidth coming into the location or locations. So now what we're creating is multipathing. We're creating the ability for traffic to flow in multiple directions from multiple sources to multiple sources, which basically allows us to truly right size the customer, which, as I talked about earlier, all about saving business costs and IT costs. So you know, I don't want to go too far down that path just yet, but that is what makes our configuration different, and we do that for all of our SD-WAN deployments.
Awesome.
I
I was gonna say, I mean, that all sounds interesting, but what does that mean for our clients? I mean, what are the benefits? Why is
Right.
this good?
Why is this good for the end user out there? What does a hybrid gateway give them? It gives them a couple different things. First of all, with our configuration, right sizing. Andrew just mentioned part of it. Right sizing the box, and let me give you an example of that. For a lot of SD-WAN deployments, people are looking to have what we'll say 2 legs at the location. That'll be an active solution. And I'll give you a real world example where I've got a customer out there that's deployed. They've got a 30 by 30 EOC. And of course, by default, everybody that's been doing this game knows a 300 by 30 cable is going to be that second leg. That's going to be the best bang for the buck. But most of my competitors say, I want you to add up the 300, the 30, the 30, and the 30 and get that number. And now I'm going to size a box off of that. And then I'm going to size a tunnel based off of that, because most likely I'm going to make you route everything back through the tunnel. This is where we get into the title about the myth of identical SD-WAN solutions being the same. It may be the same hardware, it may be the same software, but how it's implemented does make a difference. What happens with ours is we get to actually right size. So when I look at a customer, instead of adding up and using that equation that most of the industry does, we actually look at the data and the throughput and the utilization, and we right size the box based on their actual throughput. We then put a caveat in the statement of work that says, hey guys, we all know that yes, this is technically an undersized box based on the amount of bandwidth that's attached, but we all agree that it's going to be at this threshold, whatever X threshold is. And if we cross that, we'll upgrade it and we'll go from there and everybody's happy. I have customers that have saved hundreds and thousands of dollars that are now basically they did a 36 month, now they're back renewing again for another 36, so they're in their 4th year. And they have saved tons of money, because if they've gone to a competitor, what the bandwidth that they would have gone with for the second legs would have increased their box and their tunnel size. Again, because of our hybrid gateway, we can now choose and right size our tunnels, meaning everything doesn't have to come back to my core. I don't have an entire network where I've put hundreds of private gateways out there trying to be better than the Velo Premium gateway. That's not our play out there. But for our play is very good for the customers we support, is getting them out there and getting it at a fair and right price and right size. One last thing that it gives is it gives full access to the orchestrator, full keys to the kingdom. A lot of our competitors do an API that goes to their private website that may have a stripped down version of what you have access to. Everything that we do is fully white glove deployed to the moment of activation. Ahead of time, we've decided on that fork in the road. Is it going to continue Ritz-Carlton white glove where we handle everything? You're going to lock us out and VMware out completely, because they can do that as well. Of course, only we like to make sure those people are actually certified and understand what they're doing. But we do have customers of that as well. And then lastly is where we'll say 87 to 92% of our customers fall, and that's that co-manage. That is where BullsEye does all the heavy lifting. But for that customer that says, you know, the time it takes me to log into your portal and to open up a ticket, if you gave me access to the orchestrator, I know what I'm doing. I could log in and be done with it and know it's taken care of. You know what? They're right. And so we allow it. Now, I'll be fully transparent. I charge the same amount as I do for co-managing as I do the white glove full managing. Reason is, unfortunately, when mistakes are made, we're the ones that are here in the safety net to make sure that they're covered and fix those mistakes. So that's a quick of where the benefits are in that hybrid gateway. What does it really mean? It's going to save money up front on tunnel and box size. It's going to right size them and keep them happier in that scenario.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like it's definitely a benefit. If you could do me a favor, and if you could kind of quickly do an apples to apples comparison. I think our audience would probably like to understand exactly what the differences are with a hybrid versus their regular. I know that we kind of touched on that, but maybe you can take a deeper dive into what the comparisons are.
Sure. I mean, basically what it's about is, like I kind of just broke down. I mean, we can reiterate, it's literally that most of my competitors have one thing and they're going to force everybody to go through the tunnel. And because of our hybrid gateways, meaning we have some forks in the road, meaning right from the edge, we'll allow things to go down to our private gateways where our data is going to be and our services offerings are going to be. We're going to have the other way that's going to go out and it's going to go to the premium gateways, and that's going to be like Azure, Dropbox, GE IoT hosting facilities, Google's hosting, and the list goes on, that there are options out there on the premium gateway. And all of that is going to get you there in 50% hop count savings, 40% savings in milliseconds, all in an encrypted tunnel. Now, so that's kind of that piece right there. So the other piece that's last is I'm going to allow people to go out the local legs, where almost none of my competitors let that happen at all on an SD-WAN. And what does that mean? Well, that means I've got 2 raw legs of broadband that are connected to this box that not everything has to go through the tunnel. I have lots of customers that have guest Wi-Fi. They want to make sure their customers have access to guest Wi-Fi, but they don't want to pay a premium to make sure that it's encrypted and a little bit better experience going through that tunnel. They're okay with letting it go out just the local broadband circuit, and so they don't want to pay for that. With our kind of setup, that's the difference.
No, thank you. That's exactly where I was going with that. So typically, how long does something like this take to be deployed? Just out of a curiosity question.
Yeah, I can. I'll take that one, Jim.
Yep.
Well, we could probably tandem this one because there's pieces I know and pieces that you know better. So I would say from a deployment standpoint, typically, assuming the right size box that we need isn't under the massive national supply chain shortages, right, with hardware that we're all very familiar of today. Our boxes are shipping within 3 to 5 business days. Assuming that there's already broadband at the site and we're not waiting for a circuit to be turned up or something like that. The boxes ship out in about 3 to 5 business days and actually turned up within a couple weeks. Unless I have that wrong, Jim, but I'm pretty sure that's our.
Nope. Right now. You're spot on. And what's going on, guys, is it goes like this. We can do, and that's something I'll highlight, I can do a POC where we've got a proof of concept where I can take 1 or 2 locations and kick it up for 30 to 60 days, let them kick the tires with no risk. They'll be using their existing bandwidth, but it gets them to get a feel for it and see, get them kick the tires. That's first. Secondly is after signature, the sales engineers are quickly engaged ahead of time and right at signature, because we've got a statement of work that's very detailed that's going to help build out that initial build of the orchestrator and how they want their rules set up for that. And then quickly it's reviewed with the customer online with a review call and a kickoff call. Project managers are assigned and teams are tasked, and we start to do a rollout. But you're pretty much spot on. Within 30 days, everything is starting to deploy. On larger rollouts, of course, it's a rollout schedule, and it's based on the customer's needs and wants.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're about 10 minutes remaining, and so it's that time to take questions. So, get your brains ready because we've got a few queued up. So our first question here is asking about Orchestrator. What exactly is Orchestrator?
I'll take that. There are 3 components of SD-WAN. There is the edge box that's called, the edge that's going to be out there at every location. There are gateways that are salt and peppered throughout the United States and the world. That's going to be at all those different places we talked about where we want to get to safely. And the orchestrator is the actual software that's out in the cloud that uses machine language to make some decisions based on rules that we set up around the data and how we want to control that data. So some data we may want to rate limit. Some data we want to give priority to. Some data we just want to fully restrict. So what we're going to do is we're going to set rules based around that data. And so a company ensures that it's paying for the data that it's paying for, that it's getting to utilize the data the way it wants to, not the way its employees want it to use it.
Great. And I think, let's see, we'll segue on to our next question. Oh, there's a question about diagrams for reference, and I think I can take that one by saying that if we set up a further deep dive into our solution, I know firsthand, James, you've got all sorts of wonderful diagrams that explain exactly how our system works. So we can take that one as a follow-up perhaps reach out to one of us. Next question. In a co-managed scenario, what does my customer have access to do?
It has full admin access rights, just like any of our engineers that would support it, all the way down to the remote diagnostic tools, which seems to be always cut off from everybody. Everything's there. We don't believe in cutting off. We want to be fully transparent and be full partnerships. So when we say we're giving access, we give full access. Same thing that our admins have.
And can I also comment too? That's a great point, Jim. And one thing I was trying to fit in somewhere else, but this is actually even better, is from a partnership perspective. And when we offer that level of partnership to our customers and that level of control, Jim and I have worked on this in the past, where because of this co-managed partnership we have with the gateways, with the orchestrator, we've actually engaged customers to say, hey, you know, at one point we sized you at this tunnel because you were using a lot of traffic. Well, as everybody went remote, obviously less people are in the office, traffic levels have shifted. Jim and I have reached out to customers to say, hey, we actually want to downsize you and save you more money, you know, on your renewal, because we're looking at this with you saying, hey, we don't think that you need a tunnel this size. So it's just, it's more, you know, just that level of service that we look to provide for our customers. It all ties back to that partnership that we have, and the visibility that we have by our setup.
That's perfect, Andrew. Yeah, and it's truth. Every QBR, the SEs are going in over with our customers. The QBR is a quarterly business review that we do with all our customers, and we make sure that everything's still in alignment. And part of that is reviewing the actual data and the usage and where their spikes are, and do we have to look at raising or reducing these tunnels? And yes, we absolutely advise customers, you're paying for way more than you need on that. Let's see if we can reduce it down and help you. So that's part of our advising and being a trusted advisor as well.
Excellent. One more question here. So the question is, are we, BullsEye, assigning the IP addresses?
We get, yes. Typically, we can do it with the static. We have to have one leg that we like to have a static IP on. And so normally if we're selling that leg or acquiring it, we tell them we need a single static. But it can be deployed as a single leg or a leg with LTE standby is another option. But if you're going to get the full benefit out of SD-WAN, you're most likely looking for an active-active. Now, they don't always have to be matched, because in scenarios, like for instance, if you're using a cable as your primary and you want to fill in with something like a DSL line, which I know people are going, really, a little DSL line? Well, that's really, sometimes that's all you need, because when multipath is going on, all it's looking for is to fill in on the gaps when we're having jitter on the main line and the cable line. So it engages and disengages while needed.
Awesome. And there's one last question. So this is only for VeloCloud. This solution or this approach is not applicable for any other providers.
This is specific. This is specifically VeloCloud, you know, and offering our implementation of VeloCloud that we've been talking about today. Not all SD-WAN is created equal. I mean, some SD-WANs include something like a premium gateway service, just like we talked about today, as that being one of the options out there, or all these hundreds of gateways that are all over the place. Say an example, and I'm not beating up on them, they're a great product, Silver Peak, but they don't include a premium gateway service. So what does that mean? That means I have to have a device at all these locations as well if I want to get that enhancement besides from site-to-site type locations that are going on between my network.
Excellent. Last chance for any questions. I think that that's all that we've gotten in so far. No more questions. Okay. Well, we have a handful of minutes remaining, and I think that'll about do it for us. I want to thank you, James, and thank you, Andrew, for your time. And I especially want to thank everyone who has attended. As mentioned, this is recorded, and a copy of it will come in your inbox for everyone who attended. So if you didn't get a chance, grab one of the 2 handouts that are available in the sidebar. And for those of you that requested, we will follow up with additional information. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe. Thanks for coming.